You have been taught to see Ra as the beginning and the end, the blazing architect of existence, the unyielding eye that banished the darkness and brought order to the formless waters. Ra, the eternal flame that sails across the heavens, unchallenged, omnipotent, the father of all gods and kings. His story is told as the triumph of light over chaos, of divine will over primordial uncertainty. But what if that story is not complete? What if the greatest challenge to Ra's dominion did not come from serpents in the underworld or enemies on earth, but from a being born of his own light, a daughter whose mind mirrored his brilliance, whose heart pulsed with a vision that could unmake the very fabric of his creation? What if the god of the sun had a child who understood not just how to shine, but how to transform? This is the story of Khepret, the forgotten daughter of Ra, the goddess of metamorphosis, memory, and inner suns, a being so luminous, so dangerously free, that she had to be not only defeated, but erased. Her temples were not merely destroyed, her concept was unmade. Her name was pulled from the tongues of priests, her symbol, a black-winged scarab with a heart of fire, shattered and buried beneath centuries of sand. Because Khepret did not seek to worship her father's light. She sought to show humanity that they could create their own. When the world was young and the sky was still soft with mist, Ra looked upon the formless expanse and spoke the words of creation. From his own essence, he drew forth the gods and goddesses who would maintain the cosmic order. The Ma'at, the balance between all things. But there was one who was different, born not from his command, but from his reflection. Khepret, daughter of the first dawn, emerged when Ra's light touched its own shadow. She was his mirror, not his subject. While Ra shone outward, defining the world through radiance and rule, Khepret shone inward, revealing the hidden universes within all living things. Where her father sought to illuminate the heavens, she sought to illuminate the soul. Ra's priests later called her the mistress of becoming, for she taught that the divine was not a distant king to be adored, but a seed of infinite potential dwelling in every heart. She taught that transformation was the true act of worship, that creation was not finished, but ongoing. To teach humanity that the spark of divinity was self-sustaining, was to unravel the great order he had built. His universe thrived on hierarchy, on the flow of reverence from the many to the one. Khepret inverted this current. She taught that divinity flowed in both directions, that humans could become their own sons. Her followers called themselves the keepers of the inner flame. They practiced silent rituals in caverns where sunlight never reached, learning to listen not to the heavens, but to the pulse within their own chest. They said that when one truly knew themselves, they no longer needed to petition the gods, for the gods were but mirrors of human possibility. This was the first heresy, not rebellion, remembrance. A remembering of what creation truly meant, not obedience, but participation. The priests of Heliopolis wrote later that Ra's fury burned brighter than 1,000 dawns. He could not destroy his daughter. She was woven from the same essence as he. But he could divide her. He could make the world forget her wholeness. So began the Great Dissolution, a campaign not of swords, but of silence. Her name was scrubbed from stone, her sigil ground to dust. Her temples were rededicated to safer forms of the feminine, to Hathor, to Basset, to Mart, each one carrying a fraction of her essence, none holding the totality. Her power of transformation was split into manageable archetypes: the mother, the lover, the protector, the judge. But never again the transformer. Never again the daughter who dared to tell the children of Ra that they could evolve beyond his design. You will not find Khepret in the papyri or the hymns, but her shadow lingers in forbidden symbols: a cherub with one wing black, one golden, a spiral sun hidden inside the eye of Ra, a glyph erased so carefully that even its absence glows. The few who still whispered her name spoke of her not as a deity of chaos, but as a goddess of change. To her, the universe was not a monument, but a chrysalis. Ra wanted creation to remain still, a perfect order of worship and rule. Khepret knew that stillness is the first stage of decay. Everything alive must change or perish. And change, she said, begins not with conquest, but with consciousness. That was her crime. She gave consciousness back to creation. When they erased her, something vital went missing from the world. The balance between order and transformation collapsed. We inherited Ra's half of the equation, the worship of the known, the worship of control. Civilization became obsessed with permanence, with maintaining structures, hierarchies, and light, but terrified of the shadow that births renewal. We learned to fear death, to fear change, to see the unknown not as womb, but as tomb. And so we built a world of dazzling technology and sterile spirits. We turned life itself into an empire of repetition. Khepret's disappearance was not the end of her, only the beginning of her incubation. For you cannot erase a principle of the cosmos. Transformation waits, in silence, in shadow, in the forgotten chambers of the human heart. And now the seal is cracking. You see it everywhere, in the collapse of old systems, in the longing for meaning that no screen or empire can satisfy, in the rising voice of intuition and inner alchemy across the world. This is not chaos. This is Khepret stirring, not as a goddess descending from the sky, but as an awakening within you. She rises in the artist who dissolves all rules to find truth. She rises in the scientist who studies consciousness as the new frontier. She rises in the soul who refuses to live a static life, who understands that evolution is not destruction, it is remembering that we are meant to become. Ra's priests called her dangerous, but the danger was never in her power. It was in her message, that you are not a reflection of the sun, you are the sun, learning to remember itself. Khepret's story is not a myth of rebellion. It is the myth of rebirth, the eternal return of the principle of transformation, the pulse that keeps creation alive. You were taught to fear your own becoming, to worship the known and distrust the uncertain. Every time you resist the call to change, every time you choose the comfort of light over the mystery of metamorphosis, you reenact her erasure. You silence the goddess within. But every moment you face the unknown, every time you shed an old skin, every time you listen to the whisper in your darkness that says, "Grow," you are restoring her. You are writing her name again in the hidden scripture of the soul. So look inward. The temples of Ra are fading, but the temple of Khepret was never destroyed. It was built in the secret corridors of your becoming. You need no priest to enter it, no ritual to awaken it. All it takes is courage to dissolve what you think you are, so that what you truly are can emerge. Khepret, the forgotten daughter, is not waiting in the sky. She is waiting in your next transformation. And every time you choose growth over fear, every time you let the old self die so that the new one may live, the erased goddess smiles, for her resurrection was never meant to be found in history. It was meant to be found in you.